This is Randy, and I'm here with Tze Chun. Tze is a writer, director, television producer, and now comic book publisher. He has directed 2 feature-length films, 2010's award-winning Children of Invention, as well as the 2013 film Cold Comes the Night, starring Bryan Cranston, Alice Eve, and Logan Marshall Green. He has written for several TV series, including ABC's Once Upon a Time and Fox's Gotham, which he is currently also supervising producer of. And finally, he is a co-founder of TKO Studios, a new comic book publishing company, which I have lots of questions about. How's it going today, Tze?
Hey, Randy. It's good. Thanks for having me on the show.
So let's start with a bit about your background, then get into TKO.
Sure.
You have experience in film and television, and I think our audience will definitely be interested in hearing about your television work. Could you tell us a bit about that?
You know, it's funny, I started off wanting to be a comic book writer and an artist, and at some point in high school, I started getting interested in indie film, so I pursued that for a number of years. I had a feature that I wrote and directed in Sundance, and another Bryan Cranston thriller called Cold Comes the Night that Sony released. And then in 2012, I moved out to LA again to pursue television in addition to writing and directing. You know, at that time, I think I had worked very briefly in 2007 in television for a show called Kashmir Mafia, which was kind of like a networky version of Sex and the City. You know, at that time, I think, I was trying to decide if I was going to go into TV or film. In 2012, I really committed to coming back and doing more television. So I worked on Once Upon a Time, which was a show for ABC that kind of was a mashup of a lot of their characters from their animated movies, which was a really fun show to work on. And for the last 3 years, I have been a writer-producer on Gotham.
Awesome. Personal question. You worked with Bryan Cranston.
Mm-hmm.
How is dealing with Bryan Cranston? He seems like a super cool guy from the outside.
He's great. He's great. He only had a few weeks to be with us. We kind of worked around his Breaking Bad schedule. I think we shot Cold Comes the Night, the movie that he was in, along with Alice Eve and Logan Marshall Green in upstate New York. And we kind of fit it between, I think, the second to last and the last season of Breaking Bad. And it was a really crazy schedule. We got the green light 6 or 7 weeks before the date where we had to start shooting. And, I spent 2 weeks in LA kind of prepping and then flew out to upstate New York. And Bryan flew in the night before we started shooting. So it was this really crazy schedule. But, we had essentially 2 days off during that whole shoot. And Bryan bought the entire crew drinks and dinner both nights, which was really, really sweet of him. Yeah.
Awesome. So you are a co-founder of a new comic book publishing company, TKO. So I guess first, how did that come about?
So I've been working in film and TV for the last, 15 years. And there came a point when I was staffing on these TV shows that, I really loved being in the writer's room. I loved the fact that we were making, 22 episodes of TV every year, which was very, very exciting. There was some new kind of writer's issue or writer's problem to deal with every week and solve. But at the same time, I came up through indie film and I was kind of used to building stuff on my own. And so I kind of wanted to get back into building something and trying to build something from scratch. Right by the Once Upon a Time writer's room, it's about a 15-minute walk away. There's House of Secrets, which is this great local comic book shop in Burbank. And I found myself during lunch breaks kind of wandering around and walking into that store. And it was funny. I had always grown up reading comics. And then in college and a little bit afterwards, I kind of fell out of it a little bit. And through Once Upon a Time and going to this comic book store, I started getting back into the community. And there was something about the energy that had changed during the time that I had been away from comics. The energy felt really exciting, both on the creator side and the fan side. There was just a certain excitement. I felt that creatively comics had never been better in terms of the amount of great creators out there and the kind of diversity of the types of stories that were being told. And also the fan base was really interesting. I grew up going to the Boston Convention Center to go to the Boston Comic Con, and it was just a very different demographic than, recently I went to WonderCon, and it was like all these young, hip people who were just really excited about comics. And so I started thinking about a way to get back into the comic book space. It was always something that I had wanted to do, and it was something that I felt like I was at the point in my career in TV and film that, maybe it was time to branch out and to try something new again. And comic books were my first love, so that seemed like a natural place to go. So I contacted a friend and mentor of mine, Salvatore Simeone. I've known him for, 25 years. And he comes from the startup world, the software world. He's launched a lot of startups in a variety of different industries. And he has this just incredible, he's like this incredible business mastermind. And, I started talking to him about comics and, wanting to start a new type of comic book company. And the two of us kind of partnered on that and refined what that comic book company, what we wanted it to be. Mm-hmm. And it really came down to, we wanted to create the first modern comic book company. And we wanted to do things differently from everybody else. I think from both of our points of view, if we were going to do this, it wasn't worth doing if we were just going to do things the way that everybody else had been doing them. Both of us love comic books and we love the art form, and we wanted to try something new. So that's where a lot of the initial kind of components of our business model came out, just through those first few conversations. We obviously do things differently, like we binge release the books. So, all 4 of our first miniseries are currently available in shops and off of our website, tkopresents.com. And we also, we know that people like to read their books in multiple formats. So we have, the 6-issue set in a box set, trade paperback and digital were all released at the same time. And as a new company, we really stand behind our books, which is why we also provide the first issue to read for free off of our website. And then in addition to that, we are going around Diamond in the direct market and making deals directly with local comic book shops.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that was definitely something I wanted to ask about. Okay. So jumping back for just a second, now you mentioned like you binge release comics. So is that how pretty much everything you plan on releasing will be, like that method?
Yeah, I think that, it takes obviously a lot longer to finish a series before releasing it as opposed to releasing it monthly, but it makes sense for our model. We're really trying to broaden out the comic book readership. And I think for a certain type of comic book reader, there's the diehard fans who don't mind, waiting 6 months or, fingers crossed, 6 months for a series to finish out an arc. But there's a certain type of person who, really wants to just sit down and be able to read through an entire series, to walk into their local comic book shop and say, oh, look, this entire series is actually released right now. I can buy it, go home and read it from beginning to end and not have to worry about, when the next issue drops, and also, whether that book is going to be available.
Well, yeah, then it makes sense because you think about trade waiters. A lot of people wait for an arc to wrap up before they'll pick it up, and the problem there is if the singles don't sell well enough, the series may not continue on. So, yeah, that's interesting. And now going around Diamond, do you anticipate there's going to be like, has there been any issues you've seen trying to do that?
So the reason that we're going around Diamond is, we have a great infrastructure to do fulfillment and shipping and to do deals directly with our stores. We also, we wanted to cut out the middleman. And because of that, we're able to give, a fantastic deal to comic book stores. We do 50% off cover price for wholesale dealers, and we pay for shipping ourselves. So stores have been responding really well to that deal. The other thing that we wanted to do, and this is part of the reason we're going around Diamond, is, we really want to put vendors in control. We want to put them in control of what they buy, when they order and when they receive their books. So, we launched about 6 weeks ago now, and some vendors have put in their second or third order, just knowing that they can get books in and back on their shelves within a couple of days. So there isn't the feeling that you need to almost over order in order to not run out. Like, you can order the number that you think conservatively you can sell in your store. And if you sell out, you can have those books on your shelves again in a couple of days. The turnaround is really, really fast. And we just wanted to have a different type of relationship with comic book stores where, that they feel that they aren't being pressured to overorder, and that, if they do sell out, that they'll be provided for. And, we want our model to be a little bit more responsive than the 3-month window and the 2-month window and the 1-month window of ordering.
I can't imagine a lot of comic shops have any issue with that, because Diamond's distribution model is kind of a frustration for not only comic shops but also readers too.
When we started this company, one thing that I've kind of gone back to over and over again is, in every decision that we made, we asked ourselves 3 questions. And the first one was, what is good for creators? The second one was, what is good for fans? And the third one is, what's good for comics? And that third one was really the thing that drove our decision to go around Diamond and go, it's not even going around Diamond. They don't have, there's no way that they could stop us, going directly to the stores. It's just, that's the relationship that we wanted with the stores. We wanted to have control of how we fulfilled orders for them and made sure that we had a certain level of quality control. And, the stores have been, I think, really responsive to it. The other thing that we want to do is, we're very active on social media, and we want to kind of hopefully bolster the relationship between fans and stores themselves. So anytime a store posts a photo of our books in their store, we immediately retweet it or repost it, drive people to those stores, let them know who's stocking us. And we hope that as our social media presence and our presence within comics grows, that stores can benefit from that as well.
Now, you have some very interesting creators on board. You have books by very interesting creators. Garth Ennis, Steve Eptingberg, Jeff Lemire. It looks like you've got something coming up with him. How did you go about getting some of these creators on board? Because, it's definitely, like, right from the get-go there, you've kind of got a leg up on some other new publishers because you've got some serious talent attached to some of these books. So how did you go about getting some of them on board?
We were very targeted in who we approached in this first couple waves of books. Honestly, it was these were all people that Sal and I and Sebastian Gerner, who's our editor-in-chief, and Cara McKenney, who is kind of our director of talent relations and creator outreach. These were all people that we were fans of. And, we were very targeted about who we reached out to because, I think that we wanted to put out books that we really believed in and work with creators that we were really excited about. In terms of how we got them on board, it's always hard for a newer publisher, especially one that's untested. You're essentially walking up to someone and saying, hey, spend 6 months to a year and a half of your life working for a company that, trust us, it exists, but there's nothing to show you right now. But the fact is that I have not met anybody who works in comics who does it for the money, because there isn't that money on the publishing side. Everybody does it because they love comics. Everybody loves the art form. Everybody wants comics to succeed and have a space in culture, where people are talking about it, people are excited about it. And my feeling was that comic book storytelling and the fandom has really evolved over the last 20 years, especially, and that the business side and the distribution model has not evolved to support that fan base and its creators. So, essentially we just walked up to people and told them that we were a new comic book company and we wanted to do something new. And to do that, we were going to try everything new. We were going to rebuild the creative engine and the way that books were put together from the ground up. And we were going to rebuild the distribution model from the ground up. And I think that people like the fact that we were, and maybe it was a ballsy move. And I think that we had the weight behind us to do that. And, for most people, they wanted to see somebody try something different in comics. And we were those people.
Now, I'm assuming it's kind of like they're kind of like creator-owned deals. How does that work? And do you have any creators that you would consider exclusive to TKO, or is it all just kind of like free agents?
So when we created our model, we wanted to combine the best of both worlds. The projects are not creator-owned,
okay,
but we build in a lot of the protections that creators would have if they were creator-owned. And I do believe that our creators will benefit financially much more than any creator-owned project they've ever done. I don't really think of anybody on TKO's roster as exclusive. My co-founder and I, we crafted all the work agreements and the contracts, and this is getting a little nitty-gritty, but essentially they're the contracts that I would want if I was sitting across the table from myself.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a certain type of company that their goal is to lock up a creator, lock up their intellectual property. That's not what we ever wanted to do. And to be honest, part of the reason that I personally, on my side, wanted to start a comic book company was, I had sold a number of screenplays and pilots to studios, and I got paid well for them, but I don't think that those things will ever get produced, and those projects are locked up. So it was of, utmost importance to me that if somebody was going to come and work on a project for us, that they only felt the benefits of working with a new publisher with a lot of weight behind them and with some new ideas, and they didn't feel the constriction that a lot of companies put on their creators.
So what are some ways that you're getting books out in front of your intended audience?
So, we have a PR person that is doing a big push right now. It's funny. So we had always thought we launched in December, and we launched via Twitter. Most comic book companies, I think nowadays, they still launch via exclusives with news sites, but we were doing so many things differently that we really wanted to control the messaging and to not filter that through an outside source and to reach our potential fans and readership directly. So we felt that, okay, well, let's put this thread on Twitter at TKO Presents and see what happens. We'll do a soft launch, and at least people will kind of understand who we are. We did kind of a friends and family password for people to enter the site, which we kind of posted at the bottom of that thread. I don't think any of us really understood how quickly things would take off. Within 48 hours, we were contacted by 1/10 of the comic book stores in the US asking to stock our books. And the reaction, on social media has been really incredible. I think right now we need to continue that momentum, which is why we brought on a PR company, and we are doing, comic book press and mainstream press.
Mm-hmm.
But also, we also know that comic book stores are a big part of how people discover comics. Even for someone like me who lives in a, city center and Amazon is one click away, I still like to discover comics in a comic book store.
Mm-hmm.
I like picking up the comics. I like talking to the people behind the counter. It's an experience that I don't think is replicated anywhere else. So while we're doing our PR push, we also really want to make sure that comic book stores are included in that conversation. And I think that a lot of people are coming to our books through comic book stores and the support of the people in those stores. Again, we do great deals with comic book stores, 50% off cover price. We pay for shipping. And, every time that they sell a book, it's not piecemeal because they're selling the entire miniseries. So every sale is a big sale for them. And there's a big dollar amount that's attached to it. But beyond that, it's been really great just on the creative side, seeing comic book stores post about the books themselves and the content of the books, and seeing that people are really responding to the stories that we're telling.
Yeah, that's another thing. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I found the variation in the books that you're listener, full transparency, you guys had sent a couple review copies our way, or preview copies of books, and there's a lot of variation in the kinds of stories there. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you go about deciding on which books to move with?
Yeah, so we decided very early on that we were not going to publish any superhero comics.
Okay.
And I love superhero comics. I think everybody who works at the company loves, those were the comics that they grew up reading. But that genre is really well served by other comic book companies. There's just so much of it out there, and we really wanted to differentiate ourselves. And also, I think that as a modern comic book company, we just wanted to try to limit, we just wanted to say that we weren't going to publish those types of books. So the way that we went about it was, we wanted to have a really diverse slate in terms of the genres of stories we were telling. Mm-hmm. What we look for is new takes on established genres. So like new ways in, new characters you haven't seen before, entering a genre that, has a fan base. So Stara is obviously a war story, but I had never seen a comic that was told from the point of view of Russian female snipers. Goodnight Paradise is a mystery story, and it has those kind of genre bones to it, but it's a murder mystery that's set in the homeless population of Venice Beach, California, and has a homeless man at the center of the story as a somewhat unreliable narrator. And so it was just a new take on it, and it was a take that I really responded to. Seven Deadly Sins, it's a Western, but those seven main characters who each kind of embody one of the seven deadly sins, those were stories that I don't think I had ever seen in like Gunsmoke or Bonanza or these shows that I grew up watching. The Fearsome Dr. Fong is an Indiana Jones style action adventure, globe-trotting adventure, and it's kind of a subversive take on the Yellow Peril Fu Manchu stories. And what we wanted to do was tell a story where instead of the Yellow Peril Fu Manchu villain just being a villain, what if he was an undercover agent who had to pretend to be this Fu Manchu style bad guy to infiltrate the criminal underworld?
Oh, interesting.
So all of them are stories that have these kind of genre bones to them, but at the same time, we wanted to look at it through the eyes of, an inventive new character or an inventive twist on the genre itself. And, we also wanted to make sure that if somebody walked into a store and saw all four of our books together, that there would be something for everyone. Fearsome Dr. Fong is like a really fun, globe-trotting, crowd-pleasing adventure. Goodnight Paradise is a really gritty, almost like The Wire-esque examination into gentrification and what happens to people who are left behind by gentrification in the most kind of brutal and beautiful way. So we wanted to have books that were at opposite ends of the spectrum, but I think the one thing that we really wanted to make sure was that there was a certain quality to the books, both on the creative side, but also the look and feel of the paper. All of our books are printed oversized. We got one of our favorite graphic designers to do the covers and the box sets. We wanted our books to really be eye-catching and hopefully just have, some people have bought all four of our box sets, and some people, there's just a couple of them that really appeal to them. And, we hope that moving forward, it doesn't matter who you are, you can find something you like within our slate.
And to touch on what you were saying about the quality, I was just looking at digital copies, but that was one of the first things that really jumped out at me was like the artwork. It's definitely like well-produced comics. They look great. Creator names aside, like that's something that definitely set it apart because, we occasionally get emails from different companies and there's a lot of kind of rough art. And when I opened these and took a look, I was like, oh, wow, this is really good.
Well, no, one of the things that we looked at, as much as we looked at the business side of things and the distribution side of things and said, okay, structurally, what is the choke point? Why has the comic book readership stagnated, And then we tried to figure out, I think, kind of a common sense solution around those things. I want to do that on the creative side, and that means a lot to me. First of all, thank you for saying that. But also, the binge releasing was to reach new readers who maybe wouldn't want to wait 6 months or 7 months to read a full story arc, but also it allowed us something that I think really benefited the books themselves, which is, I looked at the schedule for a monthly comic book, right? And I just don't know that creators do their best work when they're doing 22, 24 pages, even 20 pages every month. It's very difficult to do essentially a page a day and have it be, if you're doing a page a day, day in, day out, and have it be your best work. You're kind of in survival mode that entire time. I've certainly seen as a TV writer, I mean, sometimes it works out, but typically if you get jammed up and you have like 2 days to write a script, like it's not your best script. So, the thing that binge releasing allowed us to do was we really could take the time to produce the books and wait till they were ready to release them. So some of our artists took 6 weeks to do the line art. Some artists took 8 weeks, but we just knew that investment in quality was going to pay off on the back end when people opened up the books and saw like, wow, it really looks like these artists, these colorists, these letterers, these designers, everybody had the amount of time that they needed to create work that they're incredibly proud of.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this is kind of jumping back a little bit, but just to clarify kind of the multiple formats, you release single issues as well, in addition to like trade paperbacks and the digital. Now, how does that work with the kind of the binge release? Do you release all 6 or 8 or whatever, the miniseries is, single issues in one go?
Yeah. So the way it works is, in terms of the formats that we released all at the same time, there's the digital copies, obviously, the trade paperbacks, again, like oversized trade paperbacks. They're about an inch, a little bit more taller than regular comics. And then we release 6 individual issues, and those are contained within a collector's box set.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah. So it goes great on people's shelves. I mean, one of the things, to the end of reaching customers and readers who maybe are interested in comics but don't think of themselves as hardcore comic book collectors, we found that a lot of people were, individual issues are really gorgeous. I love the way that individual issues look. Those were what I grew up collecting. But for a certain type of person who's kind of interested in comics but isn't a hardcore comic book collector, we found that they had no idea where to put the individual issues. So if you walk into a comic book store and you're like, that's your first time going in there, and these individual issues catch your eye, you buy them, maybe you put them in bag and board, but you don't know where to put them except on your shelves, and then they get lost. So we wanted to create a collector's case for people who are new to comics or people who just have that collector mentality and are hardcore comic book fans. The 6 issues are shrink wrapped inside of it. You can put it on your shelf. It's got a spine like a book. So it's really easy to, store them. And it's also easy to keep track of where they are. And, we think they look great on the shelves.
Okay. Now you wrote 2 of these, the 7 Deadly Sins and the Fearsome Dr. Fong?
Yeah.
Now you'd mentioned like before the director work and TV work that you were interested in comics. Had you written any comics before?
No, this was my first time writing a comic book. And Sebastian Gerner, who was our editor-in-chief, was really helpful in terms of kind of teaching me the format. And, coming from screenplay writing, I think that there's some stuff that translates and some stuff that doesn't translate at all. Mm-hmm. The main thing was just, one panel is one action. Sometimes he'd read one of my scripts and be like, he can't punch that guy in the face, jump through the window, and land on the street in the same panel. Be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, it was my first foray into comics on a professional level. When I was a kid, I would draw comic books and then photocopy them at my dad's work and then sell them to kids at school. But this was a little bit different. It was fun. I really loved it. I had always been a fan of comics as a reader, and after making a couple of these, I have a completely newfound respect for the creators who make comics day in and day out. It feels like, every time a comic book goes to the presses, it's a miracle. So many things have to happen. It just made me appreciate comics all the more. So that's been really wonderful.
Before we go, so people know where to find, I know you mentioned tkopresents.com.
Mm-hmm.
Where should people go other than probably their local comic shop to find TKO Comics and anything else you think they should be checking out?
Sure. So you can find our books on our website, tkopresents.com, on Amazon. We're going to be in Comixology in maybe a couple weeks. They just have to approve the files. At your local comic book shop, we're already in a lot of stores, but if they're not in your local comic book shop, please have them email sales@tkopresents.com. That's sales@tkopresents.com. On social, we are at TKO Presents across all platforms. So Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, you can find us there. We very often will post process shots and kind of exclusive sneak peeks at books that are coming up. So please give us a follow. And yeah, I hope that everyone enjoys the books, And we have a second wave of books coming out in spring, summer 2019. So in a few months.
As for release schedule, will it kind of work like that, where there'll be the occasional waves of new series or new books?
Yeah, we'll binge release our books in each wave, and we'll do, right now the schedule is 4 books every 6 months.
Okay.
And we'll see, we might expand it, or we might release more books on a faster schedule, but we wanted to make sure that we really spent the time to promote the books that we have and make sure creators know that we are behind these books 100%. So that's how much we are taking on right now.
Okay, awesome. Well, it definitely seems like you've got some interesting ideas behind TKO and some awesome talent attached. And I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today.
Thank you so much. This was really great. I appreciate you taking the time as well.